so we'll see how many attendees roll in here. All right, well, welcome everybody. My name is Olivia Allison, and on behalf of the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, I am pleased to welcome you to the Ensuring a Resilient Event Business series. Today's module will focus on the foundations of a successful event entrepreneurship, which will help you understand the necessary skills, pricing, branding, and a number of other critical issues to succeed as an entrepreneur and freelancer. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today. This series is intended to support small tourism and hospitality businesses looking to create, sustain, and grow their event management offerings. This 6-part series is brought to you by the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, a joint initiative of Temple University's School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management and Temple Small Business Development Center. Today's module is a 60-minute session with a 30-minute Q&A where you can ask questions via the chat box or the Q&A function in Zoom. And following the module, all attendees are welcome to join our open office hours, where you can ask today's presenter questions about topics covered in the session. Office hours are from 3:30 to 5:30, and those are in a separate Zoom meeting where you'll be able to turn your camera on and unmute yourself and ask your questions directly to Katie. And I will post a link to register for those office hours in the chat box if you haven't had the chance to do so. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to today's presenter, Katie Baer.
Well, thank you so much, Olivia, and welcome everyone. I wish that I was seeing all your smiling faces, but I want to thank you so much for being here. I realize it is May 1st and it is a beautiful Saturday afternoon outside. And so this may not be your first choice of places to be, but I am grateful for you joining us today to participate in this series. So to get things started, I want to give a little bit of background about myself. I think that's always helpful. So I am the youngest of 4 girls. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and when I was, my sisters are quite a bit older than I am, 5 and 7 years, and 2 of them are twins. And so at one point in my life, I found myself an only child when they all went off to school. And so that was really when I started organizing, planning, and really becoming such a logistics person. I started to get involved in so many things. I always had a major passion for design and just everything creative. So I ended up going to college at Kent State University and studying interior design. I loved the design industry. Ended up getting a job here in Philadelphia right after graduating, moved to Philadelphia, worked at a firm for a few years. And it was there that I realized that it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I started to try to piece together what my next step would be. I ended up coming across Temple's program, Tourism Hospitality Management, and had found out about the certificate program that they offer and also the master's program that they offer. And I had always toyed with the idea of getting my master's. And I was like, here it is right in front of me. The opportunity is presenting itself to go back to school and get my master's. So I did. And I graduated from Temple's program in 2008 with my master's in tourism hospitality management. I had been offered a position with the company that I had interned with the prior year, which is wonderful. So I kickstarted my career right out the gate, started working for an event design company out in the Phoenixville Oaks area. And then the lovely recession happened, which now is interesting because this past year has been so much more, dramatic and telling on this industry. But, that was a changing time for the industry, and a lot of events companies and the hospitality industry were just very, very impacted. So I all of a sudden found myself without a job. And I started freelancing out of necessity. It was never my intention to start freelancing in the industry. But through my connections, through work and friends and being part of the Temple community, I started to get part-time freelancing positions, which was wonderful. So I started working with a company in New Jersey that produced all of the outdoor wine festivals for the New Jersey Wine Growers Association. And you might be like thinking I'm crazy, but yes, there are wineries in the state of New Jersey. Many of the wines are actually wonderful. And I loved working with this organization and these events. After doing it for many years, the one thing you can never control is the weather. So that was always a struggle with these type of events. So I'm showing you like the ideal picturesque event that we had with hundreds of people having fun outside, glorious day. But as you all know, in the event industry, this is not typical. We always had to navigate the unexpected, weather, cold, wind, rain, all of that stuff. But it was wonderful opportunity that I was freelancing with them for many years. I also, for many years, worked with the Philadelphia Flower Show. PHS is an amazing organization. And they put on such an amazing show. This year, I'm so excited to see what they're going to be doing down at FDR Park in just a few weeks, actually, with the flower show pivoting to the outdoor space this year. And it'll be down at that venue in South Philly. The first time ever it'll be outdoors. But this event is amazing. And it was always one of my most favorite events to be part of, to watch this creation come to life inside the convention center of all spaces, this blank canvas that they transformed, because really event design is what I love. So it was a great way that the event industry and my passion for event design was really a great way to kind of blend the two together originally. Additionally, I also started freelancing for an organization called the Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a global organization of entrepreneurs, and I am the executive director of the Philadelphia chapter. I've been with them for almost 12 years now. And we do primarily, it's corporate clients. So we do primarily learning workshops, keynotes, lectures, but we do a lot of fun things as well. And one of the conferences that we planned a few years ago, we were able to bring in the mummers. So anyone who's from the Philadelphia area, this should be a picture of note, like you know who this group is or who the mummers are. Such a fun, iconic Philadelphia thing to have at a local conference. Another example of an event that I had produced for EO, a winter soiree that we had, just giving you an example of different ways that you can, utilize things in the event industry. Additionally, my husband and I started producing a lot of bar and bat mitzvahs through our connections with my corporate work. We met a lot of clients that were seeking producers or event planners for their personal social engagements, and started, working with a lot of their families to do bar and bat mitzvahs, which became really fun. So this was a really fun one in the city. Another really fun theme that we worked on. So that just gives you a little bit of background about me. And I really want to emphasize, my background was not, my plan was never to become an independent contractor, freelancer, entrepreneur in the event industry. It just kind of happened. And I tell you this because all of you sitting here today are all coming from different places, maybe different industries. You might be looking to maybe pivot in the industry or looking for a new opportunity if the last year has been hard with working. This pandemic has been, so dramatic and traumatizing for this industry. So everyone can kind of come and approach it from a different angle. So this is an overview of what we're going to be reviewing today. What is freelancing? Why freelance? Will I be successful? Setting the groundwork, branding, utilizing your network, making it official, the finances, tools, and then what events look like now. So what is freelancing? Really great question. According to dictionary.com, freelancing or freelancer is a person who works as a writer, designer, performer, or the like, selling work or services by the hour, day, job, etc., rather than working on a regular salary basis for one employer. So ultimately, you are the person. But then what is the job description? So as a freelancer, you end up wearing all the hats. You have all the responsibilities of a smoothly running business: marketing, accounting, HR, office management, business development, you name it, you wear the hat. Now, that doesn't mean you need to it doesn't mean you need to excel and be, super knowledgeable in all these areas, because you're not going to be. That's not realistic, but you need to know where to turn for help, especially when it comes to some of the areas that you can bring on support for yourself, like accounting or, understanding how to deal with and navigate the taxes and the payments. There's resources available out there, but knowing that you as a freelancer really become the person responsible for everything is very, very helpful. So why freelance? What entices you? Many people say for a variety of reasons. This was a really fun infographic I had found. This specifically states at the bottom about a freelance writer, but it really resonates with any sort of freelancer in the event or hospitality, tourism industry as well. And so part-time versus full-time, if you wanted to do something as moonlighting and not as your full-time job, maybe as like supplementary income. So needing to earn money on the side, didn't want to work in an office, no other preferred career, started for other reasons. Then the best things they noted were they can work wherever and whenever we want. I don't want to have a boss. I can set my own rates and no face-to-face meetings, which is now ironic considering everything is primarily Zoom still from this past year plus of the pandemic. So then the flip side of that is what scares you? And really that's probably where everyone's thinking today is like, oh my gosh, the idea of taking this big leap of faith, this big jump is very unnerving. So many people have the same concerns: uncertainty of income, getting new clients, distractions at home, which has been such a reality throughout this pandemic for many, many people, dealing with business concerns. And that goes back to the wearing all of the hats portion. And then this says the average freelancer writer works 3 to 5 hours a day. And that really becomes that you can work as much as you want or as little as you want when you're freelancing because you're setting the rules for yourself. Here's a list that I created of the pros and then the subsequent cons. So the flexibility, you can take control of your time if you want to do it because you only want a part-time thing for the moment, or if you want that extra income. But then the flip side of that is if you're needing to have the work, you can be burning the midnight oil all the time, working 24/7, trying to get things done. You have creative control. So if you have final say on projects and clients, so if you have specific type of work you want to, narrow in on, you have that luxury. However, if you're just starting up and you need the income and you need to work, sometimes you won't have the ability to say no to potential new clients. That it can be a transition. If you're in between things at the moment, maybe you are trying to figure out what your next step is. So this is a great temporary thing. But then the transition, it's temporary and not consistent. If you start to build relationships and then abruptly stop, that can be a challenge as well. For scheduling, you can plan for your current needs, but then the adverse is the anxiety of future projects. Like if you know that you have a lot of time to space to, in your life to fill right now, you can plan for projects currently, but then what happens in the future? And then the financial independence, as we kind of already alluded, create your own worth. You have the final say on projects and clients, but then the uncertainty of the income, it's the ebbs and flows throughout the year, especially in specific areas, niches of the event industry, weddings. Sometimes there's, the wedding season, which I think this past year has been very unique with that, and anything kind of goes these days. But these are just a list of pros and cons that you're probably already thinking of, and that's just good to kind of get out in the open. And then freelancer versus entrepreneur. Freelance, because we'll use some of the same term, we'll use these terms throughout the session today. A freelancer is someone who gets paid for their work hourly or by project. Entrepreneurs make money when they sleep. Entrepreneurs focus on growth and on scaling the systems that they build as a team to make money. So ultimately, freelancer is the independent. It's you working yourself, collaborating with others, of course, on various projects, but it's you with your own, like you working for yourself. An entrepreneur is someone who creates a company to build and to grow that organization, bringing on team members, and then having other people work for you. Will I be successful? That is the big leap of faith everyone is wondering about, I am sure. This is a list of the top 10 qualities of a freelancer I had put together. Self-motivated, self-reliant, organized, confident, effective communicator, tough, creative, agile, timely, and thick-skinned. I know that I do not exemplify all of these qualities all of the time. None of us ever do. But it's really important when you're being the face of your product, of your company, of your organization, that you resonate these qualities a lot of the time, because if you're doing it on your own, you're going to need to be able to take the criticism, to be able to think through problem solving for clients, with clients, at events. When you're in the throes of it in this industry, we all know the best laid plans never go according to plan, because things come up, things happen in real time. Setting the groundwork and creating structure. Just to give a little bit of background, much of this next section might come across as, oh, that's like, an unknown, or that's a known thing. Like, this is very basic. But especially when you're first starting out, it's really important to think through many of these things and really take a step back and lay great groundwork for yourself. It'll make the next steps in the future months and years to follow so much easier when you set that foundation. So setting limitations is really important. We all know, whether you have a family, whether you have another career, or another job, we all have different things impacting what we do and the time and the hours that we can spend on various things. So what time do you want to work? When do you want to work? Set those limitations. If you know that you can work, you only are available in the evenings because you have another job currently, and you're doing this as a moonlighting, making sure clients know that you're available from X time to X time is really important. Setting limitations in the clients you want to work with. If you are really interested in doing wedding planning and that's your target niche, then not going after projects or not trying to collaborate with projects that are outside your area of expertise or your area of interest. The types of projects you work on, kind of the same thing with the clients. If you want to have specific projects or specific types of groups that you want to work with, nonprofits or universities, you're able to kind of create that outline of who and when you work with them. And then creating your flow. This was, it's still relevant now, of course, but this was, for me, something that was much different pre-pandemic. I love meetings in the morning, and then it would open up my afternoons to do a lot of execution of work. So I would have a ton of meetings. Since I work from my house, I've always worked from my house. I would have a ton of meetings in the suburbs and, all over the city and the surrounding counties. And so I would try to always get out of my house early in the morning, get those meetings done, so then I could be back later in the day to execute in my office and then be available for my kids and my family in the evening, and not have to be worrying about traffic and some of those other things that can impact your day. Creating standards, the nitty-gritty stuff. So again, this is some of that, it sounds very basic, but just to take a step back and to get yourself started with a great foundation is really key. Keeping things organized, your file structure. I have always, you'll be like, oh, that project I work on, I want to copy, paste, or replicate, or use that as an example. Where do I find it? Where did I put that? Where did I organize that? So creating a very cohesive file structure from the get-go will allow you in the future to then revert to things that you've already created. So I always do everything with the year, month, day, event, name. So then if you did something in 2018, in June, and it was X project, you can look for it that way. And then things can you can actually sort them by date, which is great, because if you name it the project name, you might forget that down the line. Communication methods, standards in how you communicate. This might sound very, very basic, but everyone has different preferences on how they communicate. I miss meeting in person so much, and I much would rather have an in-person meeting with someone than, over email about everything. However, it is so important to document things, especially in conversations and the details of events. So I would always follow up either an in-person meeting or a phone meeting with an email and outline all the items that we discussed, just so that we make sure we're all on the same page. Because if I talk to a client about they wanted a small event, my idea of a small event and their idea of a small event could be completely different. And so making sure you put that on paper. And so you're all clear about the next steps or some of the parameters of the event is very, very important. Managing the things. This can go for a lot of different areas, but specifically for events that have, decor or the use of centerpieces, things of that nature. It is amazing how you can collect things in this industry from various events, and being able to reuse those and repurpose those is good for everyone. Not only good for our environment, but really good for future clients as well. I have collected so many things over the years, especially like centerpiece bases, things of that nature. And it's wonderful to have those at my, with me to be able to use for future clients if we need something in a pinch. And another tidbit I always love to share is, I've done so many events that have themes, and being able to utilize neighborhood groups that are, either Buy Nothing Project, if anyone's familiar with that, or different free groups of finding things. Once did a event that was an après ski theme, and so was able to get all sorts of ski paraphernalia free from my community group of things that people didn't want, which was awesome. And it's a great way to be able to provide that to your client as well, when you can kind of resource some of those things. And then creating a rhythm, create a process of how you do things so you can easily copy and paste for future projects. So whether it be templates of proposals or templates of, for invoicing, all the stuff that you can create a template for or use as a base for future needs will be so beneficial for you moving forward. Building your brand. This is always a fun part. So you're creating your company, you're starting out, and you're like, what do I do? How do I create a name? How do I create an image? So the first thing is to do is to think of your company name. What do you want to call yourself? You can use your own name, which is completely fine. Or if you think you might grow in the future, you might want to stay away from something like tied directly to you. So come up with something that fits the theme of the area of expertise that you're going into, but maybe not using your exact name. Creating a logo, and then making sure your logo kind of fits with the area of specific type of work you're going into. So if you wanted to go into weddings, having everything kind of tie back to that. So any potential clients, and when you're marketing, someone will understand that this company, X company, is for wedding planning or something of that nature. You want to make sure that everything kind of fits together, especially for future branding, so that there's that connectivity. And there are so many resources out there for help when it comes to creating a logo, creating a design. You never need to feel like you need to be able to do that. There are so many websites for gigs of this nature. People want to help create logos. You can put it out there with kind of like what you're looking for, and they can bid on it, and you can have someone essentially create all of your collateral for you, which is great. Images are powerful. So this is an example of some of the images of work we've done. This is print work we've done, but we like to keep a relatively consistent look of how we're presenting things. So with the hand, just making it very welcoming. And then make sure you document everything. Pictures are so important. It's how in this industry you're telling people about what you do. It's your portfolio, the work you've done, the experiences you've created, how you've put things together to make them so fun for these events. My husband and I invested in a really nice camera years ago. Now phones are like much better, so you don't even need a really nice camera. You can walk around with one of these and take your own pictures, but it's so important for you to document your own things, so you have that to either post right away on social media or to share with other clients that you're talking to about future projects. And this was an event I always used to love I love to use as an example of why it's so imperative that you document your own things. So many photographers are so welcoming about sharing the photos with the event. And so a lot of times you can use their professional photos for your website or to utilize for promotion of your own work. However, this event was a B'nai Mitzvah that we had planned, and it was a gorgeous event, and the family was so involved and so excited about all the little details. Beautiful, beautiful venue outside of Philadelphia. And the service was upstairs. In the one photo, you can kind of see the stairs in the background. And so the family didn't want the reception to be set up while guests arrived to go up to the service. And so the caterer and the team, we quickly worked after everyone had arrived to set up all of the place cards and the table settings and make sure everything looked perfect. But they wanted all the guests to be surprised when they came down later after the service to see everything in its final setup and not prior. The issue with it was the photographer was upstairs with everyone the duration of the service. And after, all the guests came downstairs and the family stayed up there for family photos. What ended up happening then was the family never saw the room completed. And so they were so grateful when we were able to share with them a lot of the photos that we had taken of the space empty prior to guests coming down, because otherwise they would have never seen the place cards, stations set up in full. And you can see on the left-hand side, all those lanyards, those are the kids' place cards. They were the ski lodge tags, which was really fun. So it was just those details that they wanted to be able to remember. And their photographer was fantastic, and she was doing her job, but she could only be in one place at one time, and she was up doing what she needed to do. So she too was grateful that we were able to capture photos downstairs before all the guests took their seats. Utilizing your network. Who is my network? You might be thinking, how do I get started to get clients, get jobs? Your network is endless. Friends and family, they're your biggest cheerleaders. I teach one of the courses in the certificate program at Temple, and one of the things I always tell the participants in the class is your friends and family are your biggest cheerleaders, and you're probably already doing events that you don't even realize you could be using as marketing events, because you're doing them for your family already. You're planning the baby showers, you're helping plan the weddings, you're planning the the annual family gathering or whatnot. So those are the events that you can start to promote as events you've planned. Your colleagues, current and past work and school environments, endless opportunities to connect with people who know you, who know your work. Even if you're shifting careers, and you've worked with someone, even if it's a finance career, now you're getting into the event industry or tourism industry, you have a great relationship with them. I'm sure they would love to have you help them with a family event that they're planning down the road. So think about all those connections that you've made, even if it doesn't seem like a blaring, direct connection immediately. There's so many opportunities out there. Your community resources for ideas, contacts, and things. And that I go back to the Buy Nothing Project or Facebook community groups, leveraging resources around you is so easy today now with social media and the connectivity we all have together. Then social media, of course, with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just an amazing resource to connect with people. I took I've done a few LinkedIn courses over the past few years, but I took one just before the last class I had taught at for this series, I think, which was, the class was in end of March, and that my first session was beginning of April for this. And I just, it's endless what you can do with LinkedIn. And what the instructor had recommended was just periodically reach out to people. If they're in your industry, if they're a colleague you haven't connected with in a while, reach out, say hi, see how they're doing, let them know what you're working on, let them know, oh, I'm thinking of transitioning, I'd love to chat with you at some point. There is so little on the line for you to just make those connections and keep those connections relevant, and let people know what you're doing, because they will be your biggest cheerleaders. And then gig sourcing, as you're starting to try to build up opportunities, Upwork, Fiverr, Guru, Freelancer, Flex Jobs, there's a lot of online opportunities now to put yourself out there to start getting small jobs. If you're having a kind of that tough start, trying to figure out, how do I get my first job, or how do I build up my portfolio? There's so many online platforms now that can help you with that. making it official, all of the fun stuff. I see LLC navigating all the acronyms. This was where, for me, it was super overwhelming initially. So these are kind of the differences between some of the main ones you've probably heard: independent contractor, a natural person, business, or corporation that provides goods, services, or others to another entity under terms specified in a contract or within a verbal agreement. This form is merely a report of money paid. Independent contractors do not have income taxes withheld like regular employees. So independent contractor, a freelancer, is, you then have to report your taxes. Many times you end up paying them, like you prepay them quarterly for the next year, but the first year can be the most challenging. You don't have them taken out of the money that you're earning, and then you just report it. And then sole proprietorship, a person who is the exclusive owner of a business, entitled to keep all profits after tax has been paid, but liable for all losses. Sole proprietorship do not produce a separate business entity. This means your business assets and liabilities are not separate from your personal assets and liabilities. That means anything like you have personally, your house, is also tied with the business. There's no distinction there. And then the LLC is a corporate structure whereby the member of the company cannot be held personally liable for the company's debts or liabilities. Limited liability companies are essentially hybrid entities that combine the characteristics of a corporation, a partnership, or a sole proprietorship. So this is not my area of expertise. I always encourage everyone it's not the most glamorous website and it seems overwhelming, but irs.gov has a ton of resources, information, and like self-help stuff about trying to navigate what do I need to do and what steps do I need to take, because it can seem very overwhelming. My husband and I ended up setting up an LLC because for us, that seemed to be the safest and kind of the best route of the type of company we wanted to set up. But we used an accountant to help us navigate that process because otherwise it was very overwhelming to us. But again, irs.gov has a ton of resources. Creating your business plan. This, again, for some might be like, I don't need to do this step. But I am a very visual person. Many times I find people in this sector are also very visual. And for me, it's very important to just get a good sense of what you're trying to accomplish by writing it down. So creating a very simple business plan, your mission statement, the outline of your business, the goals of your business, outlining your background, any team members, and an overview of when your business was created. So if you're collaborating with a friend and starting, a wedding planning business, you just kind of put down of who we are, why we started this, what we're all about, our experience. That's where you would kind of say we have X number of years of experience doing X, Y, Z. Service or product. This is the main part for your one-page business plan, and simply list the products and services you offer and their prices. So I'll continue using the example of wedding planning. If you are going to be doing full service wedding planning, or if you're only doing day of assistance, or what products you're offering, and then you can outline those. So then you guys have a great sense of how you can then, your elevator pitch, you can help create that from there, but what you're selling because you've outlined exactly what your services are. And then your market, who are your clients? Where can they be found? How do you reach them? This is a great way to get the juices flowing of, okay, what can I do to start getting these clients? Who can I start reaching out to? Oh, I have a cousin that is getting married, or all of her friends are getting married. Maybe I can reach out to them. Like, start navigating the options that you have with the network that you have. I found this link, and I have this listed at the end of the deck with some other great resources and links from the presentation that I know Olivia will circulate following the session today, but an easy freelance business plan and template. This was a great website that I found that I just thought I wanted to share with you guys that you can use as like an easy resource. The finances. Where do I start? Oh my gosh, this is always the most overwhelming, other than oh my gosh, should I even do this? So working the finances. When do I set up a bank account? Invoicing, checks and credit card payments. How am I taxed? Writing things off, flat rate versus hourly rate. all the stuff you start thinking about, like, oh, I need to start putting things into motion. What do I do first? Today, there are so many options with collecting payments, which makes it so much easier. Many of us are probably using a handful of these already. Venmo, Apple Pay, I think PayPal, especially now with the pandemic, everyone's trying to go away from using even their own credit card. You're just using your phone to pay for things, or no cash. We're just gone touch free. And so many of these options are available and becoming more and more common in every type of company and spending. So it makes it a lot easier for you to kind of get set up with them. Again, the IRS, going back to that, they go to the website. Again, not a beautiful website, seems overwhelming, but they do have some really great stuff and points and overview. There's a wonderful workshop that I wanted to highlight here about how do you understand with the taxes. It might seem overwhelming to bring in an accountant. That might be like, oh my gosh, that seems crazy. That seems like a big investment, but it's really helpful. There are so many accounting firms that work with small businesses, especially those getting set up, and they can help you lay the foundation of what you need to be looking for, what you need to be considering, planning and making the right decisions so you don't have issues down the line. It doesn't have to be a big spend either. And this is another place where leverage your connections. You might know someone that's an accountant. They might be able to help you with this. Maybe you plan a party for them. You can use that barter system as well. But knowing where to turn for that help is really what I want to get across to you today, is that there's so many available resources to all of you to get started through some of these scary parts. Tax deductions, that's again where an accountant will be so helpful of like, what can I actually write off on my taxes? Mileage, internet access, office supplies, having a home office. Right now, pretty much most people are working from home still. And like, how do you clarify, or how do you write that off on your taxes of having a home office now? Well, they can help you understand the rules and regulations, because they're constantly changing about many of these things. For the home office, my understanding, I've worked out of my house for 12 plus years now. I've never written anything off, because I've never had a room that is solely an office. As you can see behind me, this is our guest room. This is one of our home offices, but you need to have that dedicated space within your, living or home or business that is the office. So those are the things to just confirm and clarify with an accountant. So then we discuss the fee structure options. You're probably very familiar with these options: hourly rate, day rate, and project rate. Hourly rate is very straightforward. You paid for the hour of work. You work 40, you charge $40 an hour, you work 8 hours, so you make $320. Day rate, you're paid for the day, no matter how many hours you work. So if it's a flat, your rate is, or you do a flat rate of 400 a day, but if you ended up working, 10 hours, 12 hours, then all of a sudden that $40 an hour that you were hoping to make starts to get smaller if you go over the hours that you expected to work. And then project rate is you charge a fee based on the entirety of the project. So no matter how many hours or days you work, you charge a flat rate. This is always tough, giving suggestions of how individuals should start structuring their fees. You really need to consider what type of work you're doing and what makes the most sense for you. I know many wedding planners do day rates for, if they do day of service, the actual wedding day. And that makes sense, because that there's a concise start, concise end, and that is it. You create a rate. And a lot of times what you should include in there is to not exceed X number of hours. So if you say my day rate includes up to 8 hours, anything beyond that would be at a rate of X amount per hour additional. So that way, if all of a sudden something happens and they need more help and they want you to stay there 2 extra hours, then you're not just diminishing your hourly rate or your day rate, you're getting paid for the work that you're doing. So making sure you include those terms is so important. But my husband always used the example when I was crafting this deck for project rate is, if you create X, usually after you've created X 10 times, you've gotten quicker at creating X. So whether it be, putting together a centerpiece, creating a website, maybe, now you don't have to go shopping for all the parts and pieces, or you don't have to lay out the entire website because you can take parts and pieces from previous work you've done to use for the end product of another project. And so does that mean that you should get paid less for those, project 10 instead of project 1, even though project 10 may have taken you 50% less time? Absolutely not. In theory, you should be making more because now you're more skilled and you're in more demand because you have a much more robust portfolio behind you. But that's where you need to think about project rate. Okay, am I opening myself up to work endless hours for someone if I set a flat fee? A lot of times what I've done with clients is I'll create an a la carte menu and I'll say, this is what we're offering. This is like kind of the construct of what we can do for you. And I know you want this. It'll be roughly this amount of money. Anything beyond that, we'll do an hourly rate, just so that you're protecting yourself and again, making sure you're controlling your time and your value. Now we'll go through an actual infographic that I found that helps you calculate your annual salary. This is a great tool to use. You'll see some of this might not be applicable to you, but it's all things to help you just think through the process to get you started as you start navigating the idea of where do I start with charging. So how to calculate your hourly rate as a freelancer. Start with your target annual salary. I want to make $75,000 a year. All right, let's start there. So now you need to calculate your expenses and overhead. There's things that you probably aren't thinking of because if you've always worked for someone else, there are things that you didn't need to buy or get, or they were just provided for you. So now is the time you need to start thinking of them. The cost of doing business. This includes all of the hard goods and the soft goods. So you have your, the office-based co-working membership. If you, work from home, you might not have that added cost because you have a desk. Maybe you have to pay for the desk, but you have a desk in your house that you're already paying rent or mortgage for. So there you go. Web hosting, internet, invoicing, project management tools, phone, laptop, PR, all the things that you now need to do for your company. You need to consider the costs of those. Software, allowance for uncollected payments. Obviously, that's something we hope we never have to deal with, but that is the reality of doing business, is that you might have issues with clients and you might not be able to collect some of your invoices. And then the accountant fees and tax prep. Again, one I can really highly recommend is bringing in an accountant from the get-go to just help you navigate some of the items. And then the cost of living. So healthcare and self-employment tax, things you need to be aware of so that if you need to provide your own healthcare, you need to know what that cost is for you, and then self-employment tax. And that's going to vary based on where you live. So they're using $5,700 as an example, but that can really vary. Living in Philadelphia, we pay added Philadelphia city tax. So these are where an accountant can be really helpful to help you understand what things you're going to need to pay for at the end of the year. So now you've established new expenses of over $22,000, which can be mind-blowing. So once you arrive at a new adjusted salary, or once you combine those, you've arrived at your new adjusted salary, which is over $97,000. So then, okay, now you're thinking about billable hours. How do I get to that 97? You wanted to start freelancers because you wanted vacation time, flexible schedule. You want to be able to take holiday and spend time with your family. So you need to consider then your working hours. There are 2,080 working hours per year. If you want vacation, holidays, sick days, You then need to subtract those from those working hours to create your new hours, which ends up being in this equation 1,864. And then the surprising part, and this was always surprising to me, is how many hours end up not being billable when you're doing, the administrative stuff, you're doing marketing for yourself, you're getting your, taxes and accounting and everything set up. There's a lot of time that you're going to be working on your business that you can't charge to anyone. And so in this example, they're using about 25 hours, or 25% of the time that's non-billable hours. You might find that that might be a little more or a little less as you're getting started, but that's a great number to use as like a set example. So then they've come up with just under 1,400 billable hours per year. So you divide that by the 97 of the adjusted annual salary and you come up to your hourly rate. $70 per hour might be excessive as you're just starting out, but this process hopefully gives you an example of how to think through getting an hourly rate figured out based on the things that you need to factor in. And so in the deck, which I'll send to Olivia, it will have all these slides so you can go through and try to figure this out for yourself. And you can circle the things that will, be related to you and cross out the areas that won't be relevant to you. Tools. These are some of my favorite tried and true tools to staying organized. Zoom. At this point, we're all familiar with Zoom. Trello, great process management system. It's like little sticky notes, great one online. AnyDo, I love using that actually for my personal life. It's just like a great checklist. I am totally a checklist person. I like even writing down my checklist, the things I've already accomplished, just so I can check them off. Asana, a project management tool. Basecamp, another one. Monday is another great one I didn't include here, but that's another one. Hootsuite.com, Google Drive, Dropbox, Mint, MailChimp, Calendly, Evernote, HubSpot Academy, all great resources for staying organized. Calendly.com is my favorite one recently. Being able to send all these people, with work or whatever, they want to be able to schedule time, find a time to do a Zoom or whatnot. And it's free if the basic membership, and you can just create your own little link and you can send them and they can put themselves right on your calendar to have a chat. It just takes some of the back and forth and you going to your calendar and having to figure it out, takes that out, and those minutes that you save every day doing that stuff add up every week, and over the course of a month, that's where you can reduce your administrative tasks, which is amazing. Mint.com is a wonderful one. I've loved using that because you can bucket, you can pull all your finances, whether it be, your house payment, your rent, your, things for work, everything to one consolidated spot. And you can organize things, personally, and then through your company too. You can target them with areas of, this was for this client, and you can identify it on there. So when you're doing your expenses or whatnot, it's all easy to navigate. Tried and true design tools. Again, a list of awesome programs that are out there, many of them free, which is always the best. DaFont, Noun Project, Unsplash.com, Color Lovers, Squarespace. If you're building yourself a website, I have found that to be the easiest. There is usually a small fee for it, either a monthly or annual cost to hosting your website, but a really easy to use platform that has amazing pre-designed templates. So all you have to do is just fill in the content, add your photos, and you have a beautiful professional website that's selling you all of the time, that you can easily go in and update and not have to have, a developer working on it for you. And so you can make all the changes, you can do it yourself. So when you're able to do things yourself, obviously you're just giving yourself that much more flexibility and saving cost savings when you're not paying someone else. Photopea is a great resource if you don't have InDesign, Photoshop, or Illustrator, which unless you're fortunate to have a student version or another free version, can add up. So the Photopea is a free version of that. Canva.com has the availability and resources and things that platform can now offer are amazing. That has really been a tool that has really elevated itself the past few years. So I love canva.com, Keynote, PowerPoint, Scribble Maps. One of my participants in a former class suggested that one as a great resource for event mapping, whether it be getting to events or drawing out, outdoor events where things are. Really, really great resource. Allseated.com, another event industry specific resource, and remove.bg has been really an amazing tool that I had recently learned about. And it's the ability to remove background from photos instantly, free website. So if you're promoting something and you just don't need the background, you have just, a speaker or a presenter that you want to promote in marketing materials, and they send you a headshot, but it's like, I can't use this because there's so much crazy stuff in the background. It's just a great tool to instantly remove that. And you don't have to be skilled in, Photoshop. What do events look like today? Oh, the world is temporarily closed. It is so hard to believe we've been in this new area that we're navigating for over a year. And events, obviously, early on, when there was so much uncertainty, really kind of halted. But now it is beautiful to see the things that and the creativity that is coming out of the event industry. Can we be in person as the world reopens? Safety obviously is the most important. In-person events are allowed in many areas, but at a reduced capacity, and regulations vary and change quickly. I mean, we just had the announcement in Philadelphia that they just increased capacities for indoor dining and indoor catered events, which is amazing. So we're making great progress, but that's continually changing. So you just need to keep yourself updated on what's happening with the CDC and the regulations so that you know what you can be doing for events. So that's been a huge struggle personally as I'm trying to plan, the next few months of events for my organizations and different clients, is like understanding what can you do, things you can do today look different from what you can do in 3 months. And we might not know what they look like in 3 months. So trying to plan something in 3 months is just not as easy as it had been a year plus ago. Virtual events, what do they look like and will they last? I think virtual events are here to stay. I think that everyone is craving being back together. So I don't think virtual events will ever be as dense as they have been the past 14 months. But I definitely think it's going to be a combination, whether it be hybrid events actually, or organizations utilizing and leveraging virtual platform more regularly for learning things, for events. And I don't even mean events like big events, but like meetings and just things, to make it simpler, because we've gotten all so used to it and familiar and confident in using a lot of these platforms because we've been forced to. And then getting creative with so much still unfolding, it's time to get creative, and it's beautiful to see what event planners, conference planners, the tourism industry, what everyone has kind of created out of all of this and some of the amazing opportunities. It's so fun to watch. Of course, you've probably seen this, the 6 feet apart, some iconic images of this past year. So being in person, we kind of went through, talked about some of those ideas, the virtual platform, and then hybrid, getting creative, using hybrid events, being in person and being virtual with groups, having the opportunity for both, because really we're in that gray space right now of comfort level, not only what we're being allowed to do, but then everyone's own personal preference of what they feel comfortable doing health-wise, but then also from a scheduling purpose. People have realized they can get a lot done virtually and not have to go anywhere. And so people are opting not to do as much stuff or meet as many people because it's just, they've streamlined kind of the core things that they need to do as a person and professional. And adapting through change. It's considering, you need to consider the type and style of event of how you then plan and execute it. So if someone's really, early on in COVID, if someone was really, really, really wanting a 300 person, wedding, they might still not have had that wedding yet because that still isn't what they're going to be able to plan, at least in this area, in the up here in this Northeast region. In other parts of the country and world, I know things look very, very different. But you need to think through what the event is for the client, what they're trying to achieve, to see how that event can be accomplished. And then consider the audience. Who are the clients and the attendees for event? Does it make sense to hold it either in person, virtual? What makes the most sense? I'm working on a collaborative event now with EO chapters all through the Eastern region, a Women's Day event in the fall. And we've realized, like, we're not limited now to anyone just in Philadelphia. We can open it up to anyone really on the East Coast in any of the chapters, because we can have that virtual platform and also can do some things local and have smaller groupings and have it be a more intimate experience. But parts of the conference can be this virtual nature and still allow that connectivity, because we'll have an in-person group here. And then considering the new rules and regulations, the parameters, as we mentioned, things in Philadelphia can look different than, like the allowances in Philadelphia can look different than what's happening in some of the suburbs and different areas around. So it's really just important to make yourself aware of the different structures and current rules that are happening. And venues obviously are, they're always on top of what they're allowed to do. So that's like usually the best place to start with a specific venue. I love this image. I love this idea of, the red, yellow, and green with everyone's comfort level. And I think this will be here for a little while. And I've seen so many other really unique ways of executing this concept in different ways. We've done red, yellow, and green name tags. So then it's like a double duty of, hello, my name is, with my comfort level. And so people just know, like, I don't want to be hugging you yet, or come in for a hug. Like, that's where I am. So just really fun stuff that's been out there. And then another resource that I found, which I wanted to share with you, was the definitive guide to facilitating remote workshops, since that's been something new this past year that many people hadn't ever previously done. There's great resources out there. And with that, I think we're just about on time. Trying to make sure I hit the hour mark. Here's that list that I had mentioned earlier. A lot of useful links about the information that was shared today, spaces to go, examples of templates and whatnot. So definitely wanted to share. And yes, Olivia will be sharing that with you in the end. So great.
Thank you, Kate, so much. Yes, everyone will get a follow-up email that has the copy of the slides, and it also has a link of this recording. So if you joined us a little bit later, maybe someone had to get out early, you'll be able to see the full recording. But now we have plenty of time for any of our attendees to ask Katie any questions that they might have. You can type them into the chat box, or you can use the Q&A function. So please go ahead and ask away. But while everyone's typing in questions, I will just say that I have posted a link for a survey that we would love for all of our attendees to participate in. I'm also going to post, Temple does have the Event Leadership Executive Certification. So if you want to learn even more about events, if you were really interested in today's topic and want an even deeper dive, I'm going to post a link where you can find some more information about that.
Thank you, Olivia. Tamika, thank you for that. I'm glad you enjoyed and you learned a lot. And thank you so much for joining us today. Any other questions?
I'll also reshare the link for the office hours. So starting at 3:30 in a separate Zoom meeting, we're going to have open office hours. Anyone's welcome to join. We normally let about 3 people in at a time, and you can ask Katie directly any questions that you have. So you can unmute yourself even and turn your camera on if you want to say hi. And we'll be there from 3:30 to 5:30, and you can come and join us whenever. We would love to hear your questions. So if you would rather ask in that format, you can register right there.
Have I used the colored wristbands, or would they work better with fewer attendees? I have actually not used them at events because of much of the strict regulations here in Philadelphia. The organization that I work with throughout the year, we are having our first in-person event in May. And that was based on we've had a lot of small events, but with those groups, it was very specific groups meeting that knew their individual comfort levels, and we would bring in speakers for them directly. So this upcoming event that we're having in May, what I'm doing is I'm getting, I think they're fun, name tags printed that they have a space to put their name, and then we're putting assorted questions on them, so to kind of be a conversation starter. So like, my superpower is, or my first concert was, and we'll have them in red, yellow, and green. And the reason I wanted to do a name tag instead of the wristband was, I know we're not 14 months ago where we're as, I mean, there's still a lot of concern, but we're not as like, only one person can touch things, but I'm still trying to keep the element of touch as minimal as possible. And so with the wristbands, there's just a higher cost. And so if you're putting them out, people are taking them, they could like touch multiple when they're grabbing one. So with the sticker name tags, they're going to be each individual. And this way it's just right on their chest, the color, their comfort level. And I figured it'd just be simpler and a less expensive way to represent that. Oh, sorry. The other questions went away before I could read them.
Oh, I think they were just comments. They were comments about how when it comes to color, you're just being mindful of color blindness and what the colors mean to individuals.
Yes. Reinforce color with text. Great point. Great point. Thank you so much, Carl, for sharing that. I haven't printed them yet, so I will do that.
All right, well, we're going to stick around for a few more minutes for any lingering questions, but if anyone else needs to get on with their day, we totally understand, and we thank you so much for joining us today.
I agree. And I think my concern with the wrist was like, if someone's talking to them and your wrist is down, you don't always see it, especially if it was a few months ago in this area, when people are wearing long sleeves or coats, like that's not as apparent. So I just thought the sticker badges were a simpler way to do it. Thank you, Carl, for the comment. Thank you guys for joining.